Do it. God, thank you so much for today and for allowing us to be together. God, I thank you for the blessing of marriage and for allowing us to have what we have. God, you saw it fit that we ought not be alone, God, and that as men, we especially were not good by ourselves. And so, God, we thank you so much for marriage and for blessing us with that. God, we want to have marriages that glorify you and lift up your name. We also want to be in marriages that we're happy and everything's peaceful and all that type of stuff too, God. We pray that today is a time that is able to be tremendously helpful for these couples early on in their marriage as they are. And God, we thank you so much for the time. It's in Jesus' name we pray. Amen.
Amen.
So, you guys being here at this class today is such a statement about your investment at, taking care of your marriage and making it strong for the future. Because there are building blocks and there's things that you can do to tear it down. And so you guys making the decision to, of all Sundays, the one that we changed the clocks, to be here is awesome. Mm-hmm. And so it is recorded. I encourage you to take notes and all that type of stuff. And it's gonna be a good class. We don't have one next Sunday because we have a marriage retreat, so we kind of felt like, we're going to be saturating enough. Yeah. And so, but like I said, Dwayne and Lois, they get to do the sex class 2 weeks from today. So I'm sure that one will be like, just
everyone will be here.
Yeah.
Even over 5 years old.
Yeah. So we're going to talk to you guys a little bit about who we are, where we've gone, how to avoid some of the places that we went, and what to do when/if you find yourself where we went. All right. So with me and Megan, we basically grew up with like great Christian parents. All right. Megan's parents were baptized in the 70s before this like movement even really got started. All right. They were baptized before they knew each other. They had never been married before. They waited. They did their dating and marriage the right way. And Megan and her siblings came along, and they were on staff, they were ministers, and so they kind of, had this Leave It to Beaver life, all right? My parents were baptized after I was born. I was 8. It was ugly for a time. There was drug addiction in the house, infidelity, just, all kinds of stuff went on. And so with me, I was like a half-kingdom kid, where I grew up in, a house that was mostly doing well, but I also had kind of the tough times earlier on. With me and Megan, we dated in the church, and we got married in the church. So you're probably starting to wonder, but why are they teaching this class? And Megan's going to talk about that.
Yeah, so we'd been married probably about 7 years. And there was just, things were fine, and things were, but I had started to slowly kind of feel like this isn't great. There's something more I'm feeling. I don't know what I'm feeling, but I'm feeling something. And we remember there was like a turning point to kind of what we're about to share. But we were in our closet getting ready and talking about whatever, and kind of, or out of the blue, not kind of out of the blue, out of the blue, I was like, because I've been trying to figure out what I was feeling, how to say it, and all of a sudden I was just like, I don't know if I love you anymore. I don't know if you love me. I don't know what we're doing. Like, it was very, and it was very like pointed and short like that, and Eric was like, what? Like, he was totally blindsided, and just didn't have any idea that I was feeling anything like that. What I was, as I talked about it more, I felt like we were roommates. I felt like we were just kind of living together and doing our thing. But we realized after talking, or we'll talk more about that, but kind of things that had led to that, we just kept slowly, we were putting our marriage behind everything else, kind of letting go of those patterns that we had heard were so important, but it was like practically putting them into place were really hard. And so we This was so we were 7 years. So Carson was two, three. We had 2 kids at that point, and you know it was ministry appointments, you know, or the kids or whatever would come before, you know, our family dinners, come before our dates. Like we weren't having many of those at all, let alone times just sit and talk and how are you feeling, all that, like that, and we'll explain more about that, but that never really happened in our marriage in the beginning. So that's kind of the low place that we got about 7 years.
And so check it out, you know, so one of the staff couples of the church, you know, one of the ministers of the church who had been, you know, preaching and doing all kinds of stuff, they managed to get to that dark of a place where literally, like, I don't even know, you know, like if I like you, if I love you, it's like, oh my gosh. And, you know, and guys, you can imagine like that feeling of like, if that were said, and that's like terrifying, you know, sad. I mean, it's crazy, but the reality, guys, is anybody can get there. Anybody can get there. We had people in our lives, and we still managed to get there. We would, you know, like when you're in the ministry, you have kind of more time if you need to like slow down and focus on your marriage. You have it. We still managed to get there. We were raised in good Christian households, and we still managed to get there. Anybody can get to that place. There's a note that says, dysfunction is the gift that keeps on giving. All right. And so that's a John Louis. I don't know if you guys would know who he is. That's a John Louis quote. Dysfunction is the gift that keeps on giving. And we're going to talk in a little bit about how some relate, like family dysfunction kind of even managed to trickle its way down and through our marriage. And so that was about 5 years ago, and that was just a rotten, like, year and a half in general. We were going through that. One of Megan's siblings went through a really dark time in their own life, which was very scary and heavy on us. Our younger one, Carson, we thought that he might be deaf, and so he was, like, going through this whole litany of testing. We were in the middle of a short sale of a home that we had bought before the housing, you know, boom kind of boomed and then fell apart, and so we're in the middle of a short sale. It was just an ugly time, and that's when we happened to uncover that this is where we had gone. It's like, oh my gosh. There's a song that you guys have probably heard that I feel relates to how we got to this place, and with some of these lyrics, they're pretty intense and they don't quite relate to us in regards to some of the sin that the song is referring to. We can't relate to some of this, but more just the general idea of like how you can eventually reach this place and be shocked by it. It's that song "Slow Fade" by Casting Crowns, and some of you guys know Casting Crowns is always my go-to. I've preached Casting Crowns albums. It says, "It's a slow fade when you give yourself away. It's a slow fade when black and white are turned to gray. Thoughts invade, choices are made, a price will be paid when you give yourself away. People never crumble in a day. It's a slow fade." And, you know, the song, it talks a lot about essentially people slowly falling into sin and how one compromise leads to another and leads to another. The way that we relate to that song is the sin of not taking care of our marriage. All right, because it was just little piece by little piece by little piece where we slowly allowed ourselves to go there. And we're going to talk for a minute here about just what you guys can do now to try to not get to the place that we got to. All right. I couldn't find. I sat there at the computer trying to find like a cool way of saying it because I like to have kind of memorable like points and stuff. I got nothing. And so this is just what I said of stuff you could do to try to not go to the place that we went. The first thing is putting in the work, and what I mean by that is doing the things that don't mean that you have a good marriage, and they're not going to guarantee a good marriage, but they're the things that if you don't do them, you can plan on having a bad marriage. What I mean by that is things like, I'll frame it like this. If you want to have a bad marriage, do the following. All right? Miss your family dinners. All right? You know, me and Megan, for a few years now, we do not play. Like, we almost always have dinner at the table, not in front of the TV, at the table together with the boys. This year we've even started working in a dinner devo at the table with the boys. And so they're confronted with the Bible at least once a day. They have their own quiet time like every morning. Even today when we were like I love it. Like now when we're like running around trying to get ready today, they fed their pet, it's a bearded dragon, and then they went to the table and they opened up their quiet time book and had their quiet time and breakfast without even like, you know, having to be prompted. It's cool. But so if you want things to go bad, you know, miss the family dinners. If you want things to go bad, miss your dates. All right. And here's the thing: almost nobody can go on a date every single weekend. It's just not reality. We even have a great babysitting thing set up with our co-op. It's where people that, you know, there's 4 families that have kids the same age as ours, and we babysit for each other. And on the times that you're not doing the babysitting, you're out on a date. And it's awesome. Like the kids don't even care that we're going on a date. They're fired up to be together, so it's good for them. But then for us, we're able to go on more dates than we can afford.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? Like we're going out so much, like more than our budget can even handle. And so, you know, if you want things to go poorly, avoid the date nights. Don't put in the work. If you want things to go poorly, don't set aside time to talk. I mean, talk. You know what I'm saying? Like where you literally just, you know, talk about your marriage. You know,
I'm saying yes.
Mike and Lori, when Mike and Lori were helping us through this stuff, they're like, you need to set aside time to talk, just the two of you, but not about the kids and not about the ministry. And we're like, that's all we talk about. Like, what are we supposed to talk about? And so, yeah, it'd be like awkward. We'd be sitting there like, is it 5 minutes yet? You know? I mean, seriously, like. But those are some of the kind of the building blocks of how to avoid the trials, and Megan's gonna move on from there. You just read it. They don't have to turn there.
Okay. So Song of Songs 2:15 says, "Catch for us the foxes, the little foxes that ruin the vineyards, our vineyards that are in bloom." And so just, you know, the idea of catching things. I mean, I guess I read that as catching, you know, things when they're little, you know, before they grow and before they can really affect your marriage. And sometimes they seem like little things, like Derek was talking about, like, oh, what's the big deal of a meal, you know? But I think it's so important. And just to echo what he said. And I wanted to share a little bit more about kind of.
If I could say more on that real quick.
Oh, yeah, sorry.
So. And with catching the little foxes, guys, even part of that is the whole Ephesians 4 thing. Ephesians 4 is an outstanding chapter on relationships, for all relationships, and especially marriage. And talks about don't let the sun go down while you're still angry, and you know that there's times where you got to try to have the conversations and do what you can as much as possible to not let the little foxes mess up the vineyard or become like huge wolves. You know what I'm saying? Like, so, you know, with that's dealing with something before it becomes a bigger thing. What happens in our minds when, with anybody, not just our spouses, when you have like a dispute, argument with somebody and you don't talk to them about it? Where does your mind go? That's a real question. Then, where does your mind tend to go?
Everywhere. Every little thing.
Okay.
Walls go up.
Okay.
It's way bigger than that.
Okay. Walls go up.
Winning the argument.
Ooh. So like rehearsing it in your mind, right?
Yeah.
We all do that, right? And then they'll say this, and I'll be like, yeah. And then they'll say this, and I'll be like, yeah. And then they're gonna be like, oh, and I'll be like, yeah, I won. Like that's what we do, right? It's so silly. It's so silly. But we all do it. Anything else? You know, with your marriage, the same thing. You guys want to hear a confession? Man, we are less than 12 hours removed from like strife, like with us, even last night. You know that like we went to the the orchestra and all that. Last night after all that was like a funky night with us, and so it was like, oh gosh, like literally like planning for this class, like
gotta talk about
yeah, and then like fighting last night, But the step was, okay, let's try to apologize last night. You know what I'm saying? Like, let's try to do what we can to try to do right by this. So.
Yeah, amen. So yeah, putting in the work and then getting the help is something I want to talk about as a second kind of practical. So when we found ourselves kind of where we did 5 years ago, I was like, okay, there's more here than I know what to do with, and so I started going to counseling, just me, and because I felt like there was just I was triggered so much. Like, I knew I was triggered. I didn't know why I was triggered. There was like blah. I was like, what's going on? And so, and I had nothing against counseling, but I kind of always felt like I didn't have enough trauma. Like, I always thought counseling was for trauma, but I didn't have any trauma, growing up, and so physical trauma. And so I thought, well, I don't need, I'm not like anyway. I didn't think about it. So, but now I think everyone could benefit from counseling because we all have something that we need to work through. But anyway, so it was a very, very hard time, but ended up being a very, very good time. But I did counseling for about, I always forget how long, about a year
and a half. Well, it was kind of like different waves.
So yeah, kind of a year by myself, and then Eric jumped in and we did like marriage counseling for about 6 months together. But some things that I really uncovered from my past, so Eric was saying, we had the Leave It to Beaver kind of family, and I have great parents. I did have great parents, and I still do have great parents. They're awesome.
They're doing the workshop.
They're doing the
next
marriage
week.
retreat next weekend. Those are my parents, and they're awesome. And I've talked through all this that I'm about to share with them, and it's great. And they were humble. It's just I'm very, very blessed to have the parents I do, because no parents are perfect. But what kind of came out was this lack of emotional connection that I didn't have with my parents growing up, and what uncovered further and further, or why, or there's different reasons, but I think one of the main reasons was they didn't know how to have that emotional connection with me. My dad was 11 when his dad died, so he was the oldest of 4, so he pretty much helped raise his family, and it was kind of do the work. You don't have time for those kind of to work through those feelings and emotions, and so they didn't really talk about it. And then my mom was one of 9 kids, and she was a twin, so very much very busy household, and so neither of them are really connected to their parents emotionally, and so we had great family times. They instilled a lot of spiritual things in us, but the sitting down of the conversations of how are you feeling today, what do you need, those didn't happen, and I remember telling my mom once, like, I don't remember that ever happening, and she's like, it didn't, like, we didn't know, and so anyway, so I think realizing how much that hurt and played into kind of me not being emotionally connected to Eric, and not even knowing that I wasn't, because we would talk, right, about general things, and we would play, and we'd have fun, and we were best friends, and we had known each other. That's a whole backstory, but we'd known each other since 5th grade. So we, and probably most of you know that, but that deeper level of stuff that's going to take you through your whole marriage, that wasn't there in our marriage, and mainly because I didn't know how to do that, and I didn't know I wasn't doing that. I don't know if that makes sense, but and so when feelings would come up, I would just kind of stuff it or push it to the side, or just whatever. And then what would end up, the bad pattern that I had gotten into was stuff, blow up. And and it'd be tears normally, and freaking out, and he'd be like, oh my gosh, I don't know what to do with that, and how to respond to that, and yeah, so that when and just different, again, it was a long process, and but understanding my triggers and why, when he said this, what that made me, just all the connections, and I'm still making connections, now just, okay, this is, some of my triggers, but it was so helpful, the whole process. But, and I tell everyone, like, it got worse before it got better, which was the really hard part, because you're like, okay, I'm finally working on this. It should be better by now. But it got worse. Like, I swung the pendulum from not talking about any of my feelings to talking about every single feeling that I felt, and which so overwhelmed him, and he was like, oh my gosh. And and some were valid and some weren't. It was just like this. Well, my feelings were valid, but you know what I mean. But anyway, so it was very hard to like find this middle ground. But I think it was. And maybe I'm getting ahead of myself. I don't know. But the whole I feel like we have found a middle ground of, we're not perfect at it, but we're able to. Even last night, just working through, okay, why do I feel shut down, or why do I feel this, or what am I, and just processing it better. Like, my processes work better. Okay, there's a reason that I'm feeling this. What am I, and just kind of working through that. And so it's really encouraging to be able to look back and be like, wow, like, I'm handling this very differently than I did before. But again, not perfect at it. But I think I'm so grateful for that opportunity to work through those triggers and understand there's reasons why we react the way we do. It's not just because we're sinful. I mean, maybe we are acting sinful, but there's a reason behind that, and that is really helpful if you don't know why to dig into that.
So that's under getting the help. Let's talk for a minute about discipling. Discipling is also one of those things where if you want things to go poorly, get no discipling. I tell parents that. I'm like, do you want to know the secret to guaranteeing your kid doesn't make it? Get no discipling. Like, there's no secret to guarantee they make it. I'll give you a secret to guarantee they don't make it. Get no discipling. Because what discipling does, guys, is it helps you see your blind spots. You know what I'm saying? Like, nobody knows themselves perfectly. Yeah. No, like, if I go look in that mirror right now, I'm not going to see myself perfectly. If he goes and looks at himself in the mirror, it's not going to say Cardinals like we see it right now. He's going to see reflection. When you see yourself, even if your mirror is clean, you don't see yourself perfectly. And guess what? I think to a big extent, you also don't even know yourself as well as other people who are around you, who know you well, can see you. If I got a snot on my face, you guys would be like, Eric, there's a snot. You don't see it. It's like, and if I'm not careful, I could go, well, I don't see it. So that's just your perception. I'm sorry you feel like that. You know what I'm saying? Like, I'm sorry that you're feeling that. Like, no, there actually is a snot, like, right on your face. And that discipling gives us the opportunity to, hey, like, there is a snot on your face. Let's deal with it. I really want to charge you guys to see to it that one or two couples, ideally, that are further along you in this, know, like, everything about your marriage. Everything? Yeah. Everything. Like, it gives you the opportunity to avoid these blind spots that otherwise, if you run into them, man, you're gonna wreck your marriage. And so, having people involved in your life is just a huge deal. And we're gonna talk more about discipling later on. Psalm 139, write that down. Psalm 139, verses 23 through 24. This is the heart that we want. It says, "Search me, God, and know my heart. Test me and know my anxious thoughts. See if there is any offensive way in me, and lead me in the way everlasting." If you want to avoid trials, one of the key building blocks is getting great discipling in your marriage. Well, what about when/if they come? Let's get into the scriptures more. Romans 12, let's all go there. Romans 12. What about the when/if they come? Longer passage we're going to read, and then we're going to go through, break some stuff down, and talk. Romans 12, verse 9. It says, "Love must be sincere, hate what is evil, cling to what is good. Be devoted to one another in love. Honor one another above yourselves. Never be lacking in zeal, but keep your spiritual fervor, serving the Lord. Be joyful in hope, patient in affliction, faithful in prayer. Share with the Lord's people who are in need. Practice hospitality." Let's go down now to verse 17. It says, do not repay anyone evil for evil. Be careful to do what is right in the eyes of everyone. If it's possible, as far as it depends on you, live at peace with everyone. Do not take revenge, my dear friends, but leave room for God's wrath. For it's written, it's mine to avenge. I'll repay, says the Lord. On the contrary, if your enemy is hungry, feed him. If he's thirsty, give him something to drink. In doing this, you'll heap burning coals on his head. Do not be overcome by evil, but overcome evil with good. Okay? Enemy language applied to marriage. All right? Verse 9, let's go there. It says, look, it's got to be sincere. And it says, hate what is evil, cling to what is good. One thing as far as putting in the work, when/if they come. All right? As far as putting in the work, when/if the trials come. We've got to try to cling to the good. That is way easier said than done. Mm-hmm. What do I mean by clinging to the good? It's way easier to cling to the bad, isn't it?
Yeah.
It's really easy to throw stones. Building up and clinging to the good, that's hard. It's really easy. You know, Sam Lang, I don't know if you guys know him as a speaker, his comment that I've heard him say in multiple marriage and otherwise events is, he's like, me and Jerry, we could end our marriage by this afternoon because they know each other well. Think about it. Nobody knows your spouse better than you know your spouse. So you know all their frailties and weaknesses and sinful nature and all that. You could end it like that just by your and but of course, what good does that do? Right. Instead, clinging to what is good is our aim. And so I charge you guys, do your best to cling to what's good. Verse 10 says, be devoted to one another in love, honor one another above yourself. You know, the goal, guys, is we put each other first. We put each other before ourselves. That's our goal.
So yeah, verse 17, do not repay anyone evil for evil. That's my nature, is like, you hurt me, I want to hurt you. That's like in my core, right? Like, and just in reacting, like.
Probably the only person in the room like that.
I don't know if anyone can relate to that.
No.
But just, it's just so, reacting in general is something I've had to work on and grow in, but I think this idea of when I'm hurt, learning to express it and talk about it and, deal with it and not try to hurt him back. And it's just hard to not take it personal, but I think that's just it's so important because it just makes everything when I haven't done that, it makes everything so much worse. It just makes it so much bigger. And it just becomes this big thing when I've seen it now the other way, where I'm able to, when I'm hurt, we'll talk about it, and then we move on. It's like, oh, that was beautiful. Like, that was so not a big thing, and I definitely had to learn that the hard way, but it's very, very important. And then this idea of, what was it, in verse 18? Or the idea of doing everything you can, as long as it is up to you, you live at peace with everyone, and just kind of doing your part. We can't change our spouse, and
preach that.
We
say it again, girl.
We can't change our spouse, as much as we want to, or maybe even try sometimes. It's not our role. It's not our job, but we can change ourselves and we can focus on ourselves, and it takes some of that pressure off of trying to, change the other one. But really, in that mirror thing, even just looking into ourselves and what do I? Because everything, if we're, everything is a two-way street. There's always two parts of it. There's always, every fight, all that. Takes two people, right? And so what can I change? What can I do in this specific situation to help this situation? What's my part of it? And really, I'll just pause with that too, but like that humility that takes, like to be the first one to apologize, and Eric's normally the better one at that. He's normally, like, okay, I'm sorry, let's talk about this, and but that automatically, almost, not all the time because I'm not that spiritual, but a lot of times it just puts my guard down. You know, I'm able to be humble. I'm able to respond a lot better than even if I came to him with not a humble response. I'm able to be more humble. So I appreciate that. But and just that whole idea in Matthew 7 when it's talking about, you know, take out the plank out of your own eye before you can take the speck out of your brother's. And I think a lot of times that's how it ends up being is, you know, we're like, oh, you have that speck and that speck and that speck, you know, but we're like, you know, here with this plank. And I think it's being intentional. It's being taking the time. It's work, you know, to have a good marriage. It's work to work through these trials when they come, but knowing ultimately that it's worth it, you know, because I even had to put like sticky notes up around the house at times, like, okay, talk about your feelings. Don't react, you know, just different things, like, because it wasn't natural for me, you know, and so I
put up the don't react sticky note.
Yeah. No.
I'm just kidding.
No, but it was very helpful because I would like look at them like, oh yeah, okay, and now I took the sticky notes down because it's more natural, you know. But I think that was just a practical, intentional thing to really focus on the things that I needed to work on. So yeah.
So.
Is that it?
So we're gonna be closing out here in a minute, and any questions or anything that you guys want to talk about, we're gonna have some time to do that. We'll turn off the recording for that. So let's finish out talking for a few minutes about discipling again. When it's time to get the help, there's a few things that I want to give you guys thoughts on. You guys need to have an agreement with each other that you can tell on each other, right? So like with me and Megan, I don't know if we've established this, but we know because we know each other now at this point, that like Megan can go to Tom or Dave Eastman or honestly anybody like that she needs to. And with me, I can go to Lisa or Kathy or anybody that I need to. And that's just how it's going to be, you know, like we're not, it's not going to be this like silent truce. Guys, there's so many marriages that it is ugly at home and they're not getting help, and oh my gosh, what a joke. What a failure to realize what we have in the church.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? Like, this is the place that like we're safe with each other, and we're gonna take care of each other and love each other like no matter what. The couples that Megan and I are in relationships where we more take care of the other couple, we try to make it very clear that like you're safe to like be and do whatever. Like, yeah, but I cussed him out. Okay. You know, like me and people joke about how like I have a poker face, and that's something that I've like worked on through the years. Like people are like, I can tell you anything and there's no reaction. I'm like, yeah, you know. In my head I might be freaking out a little bit, like, oh no. But there is also a deep reality that despite the oh no, it might be like, okay, we've been in dark places as well, and so we get it, and we're not judging. You surround yourselves with people like that, and also have an agreement that, hey, you can go tell on me. And finally, on the discipling thing, I liken discipling to dealing with cancer a lot of times. What happens with cancer? Well, you know, I'll use Kyle Scholler, for example, because he just got his clean bill of health 4.5 years ago. He had his tumor removed, and so just on Tuesday, the doctor gave him the "you are officially cancer-free." And I remember, guys, with Kyle, he felt pain in his body, and he's like, "This isn't going away. Let me go have this checked out." And so 36 hours later, I think, did you come by that day? I feel like you might have. We were definitely in touch if you didn't come by. 36 hours later, he was being operated on to have this tumor removed from his body. And the thing is with a tumor, cancer, whatever, like, it hurts to get it cut out. You know what I'm saying? There's recovery, and it's challenging. It's having the tumor removed is no fun. But what, of course, happens if somebody doesn't have it removed? They're going to die. I mean, that's it. Like, there's no just, you know, like, so you do what you can. Like, oh, you're saying you got to cut out part of my whatever? Okay, why? Because I want to live. It's going to hurt? Okay, because I want to live. But, like, I'm going to be kind of exposed, and people are going to be surrounding me and looking. oh well, I want to live. You know, with us getting our mess dealt with, guys, I really want to charge us. It's got to be a thing of I don't care who knows. You know, Hebrews 12:1 pops in my mind. Let us cast off everything that hinders and the sin that so easily entangles. You know, it says, let us run with perseverance the race marked out for us. And here's the thing, when you're running a race, you're not like, you shouldn't be concerned how you look if you're trying to win the race. If something falls on you and gets you tangled up, you don't like stop, slowly and carefully like fold it up and tuck it somewhere. No, like you throw it off and, how does it look? Who does it land on? I don't care. I'm trying to win. That's got to be our heart when we're dealing with this stuff as well. Who knows about our mess? I don't know. Who cares? Well, they talk to the elders. They talk to the evangelists. Okay, we got, we should be respectful of each other's business. But you know what? Ultimately, I want help. I want help. This matters that much. Is it going to hurt? Yeah, it's going to hurt for a minute. Is it going to be some embarrassment? Yeah, it's going to be some embarrassment, but I don't care. And because the opposite happens, guys, is instead of going to somebody who can actually cut a cancer out, what some people do spiritually is they go to somebody who can just write a prescription for pain medicine that will dull the pain, but will allow the cancer to keep growing. You know what that is? That's talking to people who can't really deeply help you in your marriage. That's commiserating with other friends who maybe are right in the throes of it, or somebody who's not talking to the people who can really help. That's taking that pain medicine that kind of like dulls the pain for the minute, but the cancer's still growing. All right, I charge you guys. Let's talk about it. And a final charge for gender specific. Guys, I charge you guys, lead the way with this stuff. Lead the way with this stuff. Megan talked about how Eric tends to be the first one to apologize. I feel a responsibility, unapologetically, that, I do need to lead the way. I do need to lead the way with this. It is on me. If this marriage, were to fail, I would find it more on me. What could I have done? And girls, the charge I give you guys is simply to support the efforts that your husband puts in. All right, feeble as you might perceive them to be, or what girls you cannot do is, oh well, you didn't try hard, or oh you did the same thing yet again. Like that can never be where we go. If they're trying, then you're fired up and you're pumping them up and saying, man, you're awesome. Thank you so much for all of your efforts. So let me